There once lived a man named Herod and his little son, Thomas, in a small, remote village tucked between lush forest and rolling hills. Herod's severe manners and severe temperament were well known throughout the community. His eyes appeared to pierce through everyone who dared to look him in the eye. He was a towering, imposing man with a perpetual frown carved on his face. Conversely, Thomas was a kind and compassionate young man who had an endless curiosity and a deep love of the natural world. Herod was left to raise Thomas by himself after his wife Eliza died when he was still a newborn. Herod's heart had become hardened by the loss, and he vented his sorrow and annoyance on Thomas. He felt that the only ways to shape his son into a strong and tough man were through severe treatment and stern discipline. Consequently, Thomas had a dreadful and depressing upbringing. Herod's loud knocks on Thomas's bedroom door would wake him up every morning before the sun came up. "Boy, get up," he'd yell, "there's work to be done." With a racing heart from nervousness, Thomas would hastily get out of bed and finish his responsibilities. Herod would give him the hardest jobs, like chopping wood or cleaning the stables, and he would keep a close eye on him, prepared to chastise or punish him for even the smallest error. A strong snowstorm struck the area one especially chilly winter. As they huddled inside their houses, the locals tried to stay warm and secure. Herod, nevertheless, saw this as a chance to further harden his son. He gave Thomas the instruction to fetch fuel from the forest by venturing outside during the storm. "Boy, we have to keep the fire going." "Not one excuse," he growled. With fear and trembling, Thomas pulled on his light coat and went out into the snowstorm. The snow hurt his face like 1,000 tiny needles, and the wind howled all around him. His little frame was barely able to withstand the force of the storm as he battled to make his way through the deep drifts. His body weary and his spirit crushed, he staggered and fell as he approached the forest edge. Thomas was going to give up when he heard a kind voice cry out his name. Glancing up, he saw a woman stepping out of the whirling snow. The elderly lady had a gentle expression on her face and warm, inviting eyes. She held out her hand and whispered, "Come, child. You're not alone." Though he was hesitant, Thomas was reassured by the woman's presence and a ray of hope. He grasped her hand, and she guided him to a quaint little cabin tucked away in the middle of the forest. A fire flared in the fireplace within, and the warmth surrounded him like a tender hug. He was given a cup of hot tea and a blanket by the elderly woman, and he felt life thaw in his frozen limbs. "Who are you?" With a shaky voice, Thomas questioned. "I am your friend," the woman smiled softly in response. "And I am here to help you." The elderly woman took care of Thomas for the following several days, imparting wisdom to him about the value of love and compassion as well as the curative properties of nature. She demonstrated to him that compassion and love, rather than sternness, were the sources of power. Thomas experienced a level of contentment and serenity he had never experienced before. Thomas realized he had to head back to the village as soon as the storm eventually passed. After giving the elderly woman his sincere gratitude, he headed back home. Herod was standing outside the house, his face contorted with rage, as he got closer to the residence. "Where have you been, boy?" Herod yelled. "I thought you were dead." For the first time, Thomas noticed the anguish and suffering beneath his father's rage as he looked at him. He understood that Herod's brutality stemmed from his personal anguish. Speaking quietly but strongly, Thomas showed courage. "I'm not dead, Father. And I'm not going to live in terror anymore. Together, we can discover a better solution." Herod's steely facade briefly shattered as he was taken aback by his son's remarks. A twinge of remorse passed through him as he noticed the power and wisdom in Thomas's eyes. He nodded slowly, and for the first time in years, he gave himself permission to feel hopeful. Herod and Thomas started to mend their connection the following day, teaching one another how to care for and support one another. With the help of his son's kind attitude, the once wicked father changed into a caring and compassionate guy, much to the amazement of the hamlet. With her labor completed, the elderly woman grinned in the middle of the wilderness.